I'm going to take you guys on a field trip today. We are going down to see Dr. Green. Remember, he's the one who did my whole mommy makeover. He's a plastic surgeon here in Sacramento, California. We're going to go down and have him look at my face and give me any insight on what can be done. I know I've shared in some previous videos about maybe doing a bleph or a lip lift or the hair grafts, all of those kinds of things. So I'm just going to go down there, talk to him about everything and get his opinion because I respect it. I'm also going to have him check one of my breast scars because I feel like it's wide and it didn't heal like the other ones. And you can probably tell in other videos that I've shared. I don't think that there's much that can be done for it, and I don't have a big issue with it, so it's not like I'm going to expect him to like do anything new for that. But I'm going to ask him why he thinks it happened. Was it just like how he was trying to grab the tissue? I wasn't symmetrical, so he's trying to make them symmetrical, obviously. I just want to give you guys more insight on that because we're all different, and when you go to a plastic surgeon, your body is different and we all heal differently. And I'm not sure if anything could have been different in this case for me. I probably have the best outcome maybe possible for my scenario that I was set up for. But anyways, we're just gonna go down there, talk to him, see what he has to say, and I hope that it gives you a lot of insight. And with that said, let's do the disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1. Allowance is made for the fair use of purpose such as criticism, code news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. This channel does not promote or encourage any illegal activities. All contents provided by this channel are meant for educational and entertainment purposes to help other women and men. There is an attack on true, helpful information from genuine sources. Please help me combat this attack by sharing this video with as many of your friends as possible. I apologize that every video needs to include this disclaimer as my videos are marked for adults. Unfortunately, this is our current landscape and I appreciate your understanding and support. All right, we're back with Dr. Green and we're going to assess my face. What do you think I need?
You know, you have a little bit of extra skin. I know you've lost some weight. That usually creates a little bit of extra skin in our neck, especially. That's when we first start to see it as we age. Often these bands that we get in our neck from our platysmal muscle and the sagging skin in our neck, and you've got just a little bit of that going on. The other thing that happens that we often see is hollowing in our upper face. So our face ages like any other part of our body, like a breast does or a butt does. I mean, things go downward with gravity. And our face is more similar to a breast, I would say, than anything, which doesn't really have a lot of support. So our faces have muscles that are free floating in it, but those muscles aren't necessarily hooked to a lot of bone. We don't see things sag as much in our arms because we've got muscle and muscles hooked to bone. In our face, that muscle, especially the platysmal muscle, is just free floating in our cheek and in our neck. And so as things start to droop, that whole platysmal muscle droops. So as our cheek starts to lose a little bit of its strength and we start to lose collagen and elastin, we'll start to see drop of our upper cheek and the fat pad in our upper cheek.
I definitely can tell I lost a lot of fat pad in my face, for sure.
And so you lose volume here in our face. We start to get more nasolabial folds that start to show up. We start to get hollowing in this part of our cheek or in our temporal area. And that's fat loss. And that's something that a lot of people have ignored in the past. It's becoming much more common now to start addressing that. And so I think because you've lost as much weight as you have and because things are drooping a little bit, placing some of that volume makes a big difference. So
in the like fat grafting, you mean?
Fat grafting. So not only do we have to put things back in the right spot, but then we have to try and replace some of that fat that's been lost. So those would be the key things in your face that I think would make a difference. Would be to pull your cheek back up into the right position. Take this muscle and plicate it in the midline, which is called a platysmoplasty, and pull that muscle back.
Would it be a lower neck lift? I mean, would there be the incision at the front of the ear? How would that be?
So typically the incisions that are present in a face surgery involve somewhere around the ear. So this would be, let's say, our natural hairline. This is your sideburn area. This is where your natural temporal and frontal hairline is. And behind your ear, our hairline kind of goes down our neck like that. Incisions for these types of surgeries usually these days follow the hairline here and then transition into the hair somewhere back in here so that it's not visible in that temporal area. In front of the ear, there's a small incision right here in front of the root of your helix, which most people transition that to the inside of the ear right here around our tragus, then in front of our earlobe, and then behind our ear, it goes right in the crease of our ear, follows our hairline, and then transitions into our hair again here.
And is this why you can kind of tell when somebody has this done because their earlobe is more attached in and doesn't have as much of a loop at the bottom?
Can occur. Sometimes an earlobe can be pulled down and will attach slightly lower. That's typically referred to as a pixie ear, or that can be a deformity in a facelift. Typically, the reason that happens is because when the surgeon was doing the surgery, they either cut too much skin around the ear, and so as the face drops just a little bit, that earlobe will get pulled down. Or when they reattached it, they didn't attach it, so they didn't pull the earlobe up and suture it
to give you that lobe.
A lobed look again, yes. That's usually something that you would consider a mistake or a deformity, not something that should occur, but something that can occur.
Okay, that's good to know. Because I was wondering, like, is that just how they're always?
It's not how they always should be. It's just something that can occur. So the other things is we look at our natural jawline. Our natural jawline sits about here. That platysma muscle kind of comes all the way up our jawline and wraps around. This is about where our platysma muscle sits, and this platysma muscle has an extension of the platysma muscle that comes up here that's referred to as the SMAS, or the superficial muscular aponeurotic system. This tissue all starts to drop at the same time, which is what forms those bands in our neck, and what starts to form a jowl around this part of our jawline, which makes these marionette lines right here become more noticeable. And this fat pad up here rotates down, which starts to make our nasolabial fold lines more noticeable as that fat pad sits there. So rotating this fat pad back up here to give more volume to our upper face, pulling our platysma and SMAS back up here to give more volume to our cheekbone and less volume to our lower face, helps feminize our face again and give a more youthful appearance to our face. When you're looking at a better picture of it, artist's rendition of that, this is that platysma muscle. Again, it's not hooked to bone, it's only hooked to soft tissue, so it falls and sags, and so what we do to correct that is tie it together in the midline and then pull up on it on the side.
So it's kind of like an abdominoplasty done at the neck, because it looks like you sutured it all in.
Exactly what you're doing. You're doing what they call a corset platysmoplasty, and then pulling it up on the sides so it holds itself in that jawline, takes away from the jowl that's classically here. You look at somebody's face like this, who has a lot of sag in her neck. She's got this jowl that's hanging down. She's got a marionette line that's forming, and you can see, if you look very closely, how hollow she's gotten through this part of her face, where her malar fat fallen down, and she has a very angular cheekbone because you're just looking at her bone, no longer looking at her fat, and you lift that into a better position. Now she has a nice round cheek area, no more hollow in this part of her cheek. The jowl is gone.
Did she also do an upper bleph?
She didn't do an upper bleph. What she did was a brow lift.
Oh, you did the brow lift.
Her brow came up because her brow was the major contributor to this extra skin that was above her eye. Once we lifted her brow, you can see their eyelid was in pretty good position. It just needed to round out her brow.
So in my condition with my eyes, is it a brow lift or is it a upper bleph, do you think?
I think you have a mild problem up here that could either be improved by your brow or an upper bleph, but your problem there is mild. The majority of your eye issue is in the lower lids, where you've got some extra skin and you're starting to get some thinness of that
Which
skin,
is why it's looking darker.
some crepiness.
Yeah.
And so removing a little bit of that extra skin and probably lasering it would give us our best result. So tighten the extra skin a little bit by removing it, and then add collagen to that skin by lasering it with a CO2 laser or an erbium laser would give us our smoothest, best result in your lower lid. About lower eyelid incisions and upper eyelid incisions is they come out past your eye. Some people think, oh, they end right here at the edge of your eye. That's not true. They come out past your eye. So this is the potential visible portion of that scar. Upper eyelid incisions are similar. They go in your crease, but they extend out past your crease. And so usually in an upper eyelid, you're removing skin from this sort of an area. So that skin gets removed, leaving you with a final incision here. In a lower lid, you're removing skin from that position, removing that, leaving you with that lower skin.
And that incision's always at the lash line, so you never really see it.
Usually right at the lash line, right.
And then the upper is, I guess, tucked into the eye crease
it's
anyways.
typically in the eye crease, but here would be the area you could see both of those scars potentially once they exit sort of the orbital area.
Because they're coming into a straighter plane.
They're coming into a smoother, flatter plane. Most patients that are having this done have some natural laugh lines around their eye, and so it will often hide in those. But even if they don't have laugh lines, this scar in this part of our face, because of the skin type this is, where it has a very thin dermis, typically doesn't scar badly at all.
Okay, my other question is a lip lift, because I feel like the full trim is too long, and I feel like it would look prettier if it was lifted up. What do you think?
I think that lip lifts are something that I approach with a little bit of trepidation.
Good to know.
Lip lifts, because that scar is right in front of our face, right at our nose, right in the center of our face. That scar is something that you don't take on lightly, because scars usually heal well, but not always. And even when they heal well, they're sometimes visible. So I think a lip lift commits somebody most of the time to wearing makeup in the center portion of their face, on their skin, to cover that scar. And although it may hide pretty well, it may not hide perfectly. And therefore, I think your lip has to be long enough to really have a huge benefit for me to usually recommend that.
You don't think it's long enough? Get ready to elevate your beauty routine. Join me every week at 10 a.m. Pacific for my Beauty Lives, where we'll dive into microneedling, rejuvenating acid peels, expert scalp care tips, and lots of beauty devices. I'll also share the latest skincare brands and makeup must-haves to keep you glowing year-round. For exclusive insights on injections, weight loss peptides, and more, download my Skin and Wellness app linked in the description below. For additional insight, check out my blog that details each of these beauty lives and any other videos I've shared with you. We are about to go live, so hit that subscribe button now and join the beauty revolution.
I wouldn't do
I feel
that.
like it's pretty long.
I wouldn't do that in you if it was left up to me. I would tell you that I think that the risks of that outweigh the benefits. Now, certainly you see people that their upper lip is very long and it's clear. You say, yeah, that looks way too long. To me, a lip lift is kind of like a breast lift. When somebody has a breast that really sags badly, then the scar becomes less of an issue, because we say, well, the breast isn't pretty in the position it's in. There's no way to make it pretty other than to lift it. So now we accept that scar versus the sag. Other people have a very small amount of sag, and they may think, well, my breast sags, I don't like that. But if they could see the scar versus the small amount of sag they have, since their breast is still pretty shape, still full, yes, it sags a little bit, but is it worth that to get that sag out of there, worth the scar? I think that's an individual choice, of course, but when the breast still has pretty shape, still has volume, and isn't in a bad position, a lot of scar is a lot to pay for a small lift.
I agree. That's why we didn't do the backside, right? Because you didn't think I'd get enough benefit from that angle thing that helps like lift the side of the mouth. What do you think about that? Do you think it's worth it or no?
I think that's even a more scary scar to
it
have,
is. Okay.
Because it can, in some people, look like the
Joker, because it kind of like...
You look at most people from the front. So most people's faces, and if you analyze this one really carefully from the front, you can see her lip does look like it curves up a little bit relative to this part. The reason is because you've lifted her whole cheek. So as we age and this part is coming down,
it's dragging the lip down.
Pulling this down a little bit with it. So when we pull it back up and remove that,
it'll heighten
that little corner pulls back up some with it. So to me, the problem isn't with the corner of the mouth. The problem is with the sagging of the cheek. And when the cheek is put back in good position, the corner of the mouth corrects itself most of the time. If you put a scar here, it's something that really can look bad and scary.
It's good to know. because I watch a lot of TikToks of people all over the world doing these things, and I'm like always amazed. It is crazy to me, like some of the things that I've seen, or even the C-curve sculpting where they go in and like shave down the skull so that they can like shorten it. Because I mean, I do have a really tall forehead.
Yeah, there's things out there that are not great ideas.
No, but I've just watched. I mean, it's incredible. Like, I don't know what they're doing in China. I don't know how many people are dying there when they're doing these surgeries. I didn't know they could take as much fat as they do in these single surgeries. Like, they just suck these girls dry. Like, yeah. I don't think you can't even take that much.
That's how you have people die.
Yeah.
You know, Kanye's West mom died that way.
They took too much fat.
Yeah, they took 9 liters of fat. Certainly, there's a lot of things you can do. Can and should are two totally different things.
Well, that's why I like coming to you, because you have a really good conservative viewpoint on that. Okay, is there anything else about my face that you think?
I think those are the major things.
The major things?
Yep, those are the major things. I think a small upper blepharoplasty, a lower lid blepharoplasty would definitely help. Fat grafting to this area, laser to that area. You can lift this malar part. If these nasolabial folds bug you, you can also add a little fat here.
Yeah.
But you can see that little bit of fullness in your face right there.
Yeah.
Got a little bit of sag in this part of your neck, and that's a platysmoplasty to pull.
Right. For the fat grafting, would you get it somewhere from my body? And if so, can I pick?
That's going to be the problem in you. You're quite slender, so can we find enough fat in people? Often people, as they age, they don't have enough fat on their body really to transfer to certain areas. And so you've got to have fat to get.
Okay.
And yes, a person can pick where the fat comes from. There are areas that are best places to take fat from. So fat, when we transfer it, we want to keep whole live fat cells, and some fat's a little more robust and transfers easier. Fat from our inner thighs or our knees is the fat that transfers the best.
Shoot, we already sucked that out.
Yep, that's where the fat transfers the best.
What about arms, like back arms?
You can get it from your arms, and so you can get fat to transfer from anywhere, but you get the best take from certain fat.
Well, we can go to my knees and my thighs again, too.
If there's something there.
I was also like looking at mid facelifts. Have you seen that procedure? And what do you think about that? Because when I look at deep plane facelifts, it is true they're pulled back, right? You're pulling back. And when I watched the mid facelift, it made more sense to me on restructuring because you're lifting it rather than pulling it to the side.
So this fat pad right here is the fat pad that is addressed in a mid facelift. So in a mid facelift, you're coming down usually through an eyelid incision right here, and often through this temporal portion of this incision, you're connecting these two incisions so you can connect the face up to this position. So it's literally lifted that direction. So through this incision, you go down and you lift this fat off of the cheek in what you call a subperiosteal plane, so below the skin of your bone, and then you can grab a hold of that fat
and
anchor it to the temporal fat.
What do you think about that
I
procedure?
Think it does wonderfully. That's what I did in this patient.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she looks amazing. I'm so glad that you're familiar with that, because some people aren't doing it, or like they still want to push the deep plane facelift. And in the end, it's like candidates, right? Some people maybe are just better candidates for things.
Absolutely. And so just to clarify, the deep plane facelift right now is getting a lot of press because there's a few physicians out there that are charging exorbitant fees to do a deep plane facelift as if it is something new.
Right.
There is nothing new about a deep plane facelift.
Right. It's the traditional one.
It's been around for 35, 40 years. People have been doing deep plane facelifts, really even more than that. Deep plane facelifts kind of got a lot of press about 30 years ago when a guy named Sam Hamra, Houston, started doing them and publishing some of his results. Frankly, they compared deep plane facelifts that Sam Hamra did to a SMAS lift and a SMASectomy procedure about 30 years ago, and they compared these surgeons' results and then looked them 5 years and 10 years out to see what held up better. And 30 years ago, they showed that a typical SMAS or SMASectomy procedure holds up longer. The reason makes a lot of sense.
Because it's anchored, right? Yeah.
So the difference is when a deep plane, you keep the SMAS and the skin attached. You pull them back as a single unit, so all the tension is on the skin.
Yeah.
And that's what's holding up your face is your skin.
Right.
It's not supposed to hold up your face. In a SMAS procedure, you're taking these deep tissues, the muscle and fascial fiber tissues that are deep, you're anchoring everything on them. You're gently laying the skin in position so the skin isn't holding up the face is holding up the skin. Holds up way better that way. Everyone who does facelifts in general knows how to do a deep plane facelift. There's nothing complicated about it. In fact, it's faster and easier than a smash lift because you're only lifting one plane of tissue. You're only doing your dissection in one plane, so it's actually quicker, but there's not anything better about it. The only time I think a deep plane facelift has real value, clear value, is in somebody whose skin is too thin and potentially has a vascular compromise, or in patients who smoke cigarettes. So you're trying to keep more blood vessels attached to that skin because you're worried about the skin.
That makes sense.
That's where it's real benefit.
So after talking about the mid facelift, the lower and upper bleph, and the platysmal bands and fat grafting, what would be the best scenario? Decision.
Add a mid facelift to those other things. You do them in combination. That is going to be what makes your face have the greatest transition towards a more youthful appearance, because you're correcting more of what the aging parts are. Doing both of those together is going to yield the best result.
Then I want to understand all of those things in combination and what that would be. And if you think that I'm at the right time in my life to do it, because I think I am. I'm 42. I was reading about if you do it in your 40s, you get the longest longevity out of it and you heal better, obviously.
There are benefits to doing things like this younger. There's obviously some downsides to doing them younger. You may be doing another surgery later, so you may be paying for another surgery again later in your life. Obviously, the benefit is that you get an improvement now. All of us start to have really aging that shows in our late 30s. When we start to have that aging show, if we're motivated enough, we're going to get benefit out of fixing it. And fixing it at a younger age, our body heals stronger with more collagen formation. And that collagen formation that we develop when we're younger slows the aging process going forward. So that, I would say, is perhaps the greatest benefit of doing it when we're young, is that collagen gets into our tissues when we've lifted it, when we've dissected those planes, and when we've sutured them in position. That collagen then holds things in place much better, and you'll watch the clock tick forward much slower than it would have ticked forward if you hadn't done something.
Well, and also I don't want to wait till I'm 60 and look so different. And then, you know what I mean? I don't mind, obviously, people knowing that I do things. Obviously, it's what I do for business. But I also think doing things periodically is what keeps you not looking so drastically different.
Recovery is important, I think, in faces because unlike the rest of our body, we can't hide our face. And we look at our face, and our face is who we identify ourselves as. So when our face swells and looks really funny, which it absolutely does after these procedures, I think psychologically, facelifts are harder to recover from. Body surgeries physically are harder to recover from because it hurts. Facelifts don't tend to hurt, but they do tend to feel tight, feel numb, feel funny, and not look like ourselves. And so that's something I think is a different thing we have to prepare for, is the psychological change with something like that, because it swells and you look weird, and it's a good solid week of really weird looking.
It's not like I haven't made myself look weird for weeks at a time. But I mean, I realize this is permanent. When people come out, it is jarring.
Well, when you have so much swelling, it's really strange looking. So I think that's something to psychologically prepare for. It's usually a week to 10 days before you feel like you can go out to the grocery store without shocking people. And it's usually 2 weeks, 3 weeks before you feel like you want to see people you know. When you do a malar lift, when you lift this fat pad, that swells more, and you look very cheeky for a month and a half. So that's something to prepare for too.
Maybe I'll like it.
You might like that extra cheeky look.
No, you think it's too much?
I think sometimes it looks a little bit extra, and so it's nice when it settles.
I did 10 mils of filler.
Exactly.
It's about my breast scar on one of my breasts, and it didn't heal the same way as tight as the other ones. I was wondering if it had to do with, because I know you struggled with me being asymmetrical and one being different, and I wondered if maybe that's why that suture or that scar is wider on the bottom than the other one.
Typically, if the tissue's tighter on one side because there's a narrowness to the tissue, and that's often the situation when you're trying to lift a nipple and then you're trying to bring tissue together underneath that. If one area was tighter to begin begin with, it's going to potentially have more scar. But there are other factors at play. Our bodies are very different from one half to the other. So embryologically, our bodies form in two halves that come together. So those two halves don't necessarily behave exactly like one another. Even though we're the same person, we can scar very differently on one side of our body than we do the other. And almost always, we will scar worse right in the midline than on either half. And that's because that connection between those two halves is very different. You want Sam to tell you about cost of stuff?
Yeah, that'd be great. Just so that I have like an idea, you know, because my understanding is that
it's not 12 grand.
I know. I was setting you guys up for that. I was like, I hear. Thank you so much for explaining all this. Like, this was such great information, and I'm excited to see what can be done.
Good.
Thank you, Dr. Green. All right, we are back from Dr. Green's. Isn't he great? Sorry about the audio. I should have mic'd him. I'm upset about that myself. Hopefully you still got a lot of the information and it wasn't that annoying for you. Okay, so let's just jump into the cost and what he quoted me, because I know that's what you guys are always very interested in. Here it is. So here are the things that are listed in my quote. So the first thing is the platysmoplasty, so making my neck much tighter, lifted. Not so much of this, you know. The upper and lower blephs. The mid facelift rather than the deep plane facelift that pulls to the side. I hope you guys liked his explanation on that. And then fat transfer to my full face. We'll have to find it. I'm sure we can. I hope you appreciated that he said that the best fat to harvest is from our thighs and knees. Women, I'm sure you're excited about that. Lesson learned here is don't get too thin if you want to be able to get fat grafting. So the total for this is $42,000. The surgeon total is $34,000. The surgery center is $4,400. And then anesthesia, I paid directly to the anesthesiologist like last time, and that's $2,500. Which brings us to a total of $42,000, or if I paid cash, I could save $2,000 and get it for $40,000. One of the things that I thought was most incredible is when we were walking out, he said, oh, one thing that I want to bring up to you when we weren't filming is that with a facelift, you don't need to go under general anesthesia, which I thought was bonkers. Like, I can't imagine having all that surgery done to my face and just being under like local sedation. It's not that I'm scared, is that we talked about this and I feel like I would be very interested the whole time and asking questions and trying to understand, which obviously he does not want me doing that. So we decided instead of doing local, which would be less expensive, I would do the general anesthesia at $2,500 just because, number one, I thought I was doing that anyways. I didn't even know it was an option to like be awake during a surgery like that. But number two, I just want to be asleep and wake up like I did last time and not even like know what happened, because that is amazing. Some other things that I just wanted to touch on really quick before we wrap up this video is I thought it was really interesting how he explained that the pixie ear that can happen on the side of a facelift is not a normal thing, and that it should be tied up and it should be looped. So if you see somebody who has a facelift that got a pixie ear, not that you should do anything about it or say anything, but that's not how they should be done. They should give you a loop for your ear, okay? And I didn't realize that. I thought that the pixie ear thing was just a byproduct of the facelift. I did. Super excited about the fact that he does the mid facelift and he thinks it's much better. One of the reasons that it is so much better is because it's actually anchored into your skull with hardware. So that skin, that soft tissue is actually being anchored up rather than just pulled and stitched together. I thought it was great how he talked about the lip lift scar concern. As we talk about scars and plastic surgery, it's always this weighing game of, is the scar worth the improvement? And I really like Dr. Green because we talk about scars all the time and is it worth it? So like when I went to him last year to look at, can anything be done for my butt? He's like, it wouldn't be worth it because that scar would be completely across your backside. You're not going to get enough benefit from it. And I love that because that's probably the honest case. So when we're talking about the lip lift and having that scar right here in front of your face, you're always weighing, is it worth it? Now, obviously my lip is not a critical problem yet. And so it's probably not worth it for me to do the lip lift, even though I think that the lip lifts look so good on so many people. Doing the facelift when you're younger means that when you're healing, you're going to heal better, you're going to scar better, but you're also going to be producing more collagen, which is going to hold all of that work in place better, giving you a better, longer lasting result. When I asked him about my breast lift scar and he said that our bodies are in two parts and they can heal differently on each side, I thought that was amazing. I'd never heard that before. I didn't realize that our bodies have this midline down them and we can literally heal differently on each side. So that's an interesting point and something to be aware of. And then last but not least, I thought this was a really important idea. So he was talking about recovery, and he knows that I've already been through his plastic surgery for my body, right? And yeah, that was a hard recovery, but something that went well. Like, I thought I did a good job and I felt good about it. But his point to me is that with the facelift, it's more of a psychological recovery, because when you come out, you're obviously super swollen. I'm going to anticipate all that if I ever do this. So I'm not surprised, obviously. But I guess for a lot of people, it can be mentally challenging, especially if they feel like they just are looking in the mirror every day and maybe they're not recovering as fast as they want to, or they just feel so swollen. I know when I had the body surgery and I did the lipo in my legs were so swollen for like 3 weeks. And so if my face was swollen for 3 weeks, I might start getting like scared, thinking like, is this how my face is going to stay? But like all things, we do recover and we heal, and it just takes time. Obviously, $42,000 is a hefty price tag for a new face. So I'm not sure if I'll do it this year or next year, but it was something that I definitely have been considering and wanted to start looking into. And I hope this video gave you guys a lot of insight into it, and I hope it helps you. Have a great day.